Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode. The title is Every Attempt is Your Teacher, and I would like to speak about the honor we will have if we become an advanced civilization that focuses on skill rather than the meaning of here's the thing, language in some sense is the program where we all function through it. We all are individuals in the linguistic simulation. But the issue with language is that the images are predefined. So we are kind of like in an ocean of known and unknown imagery, and our language is the imagery that we have had a certain familiarity with, a certain acceptance. So I want to say, if you were a subject, you are limited to language. Just like Ludwig Wittgenstein says, the limits of my language are the limits of my world. I hope to see an advanced civilization where you turn on the news and you are endlessly hearing about the new skills and new heights that the human vision has gone. That's the honor of a skillful civilization, a civilization that cares for its own ability. Now, why do I say every attempt is your teacher? In this life, I've had multiple teachers, both in my schooling days and also certain people I have learned from indirectly. I would say I have direct teachers and indirect teachers. The direct teachers were the teachers that, in some sense, certain incidents that were very real. They were very direct. It's as if the teaching comes to you, But I would say your indirect teacher is your world. I have never just been learning from people. I've been processing a moment of being, really. The reason I say every attempt is your teacher is because many things you can't see unless you try. Kind of like how Andy Warhol was like, those who go to the edge see something that those who don't go to the edge don't, something like that. It's the same. Sometimes for me, the attempt of some sort of, I don't know, anything, energy, skill, whatever you like to call it. It's like my eyes open, phenomena, attempt, sleep. That's really what it is. I find life. Life is, you don't get to just experience your body move in new ways, but you get to experience your mind arise, awaken to the realm differently. I have attempted many things in my life. Some of those things, for example, I was super good at right away. Like, I remember there was this game my cousin had bought it. Me and my brother were very young, and we had gone there, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just pressing random buttons, but I was doing special moves. It was only when I was kind of told how the game should be played that I stopped attempting my own method. And that was the real thing. It was a transition from this mindset where, you might not believe it, I was a kid who, in my high schooling days, I didn't care about knowledge. I would get good grades, but I wouldn't care about knowledge. I was just trying to get by. So it's like, the less you care about something, the quicker you want it to finish. The more you care about something, you want to cherish every moment of it. If you don't care about your life, you want it to, in some sense, finish quickly, or you want it to go somewhere else, or whatever, some sort of escapist route, either through nihilism or spiritualism. You know, Nihilism, and there are two traps in philosophy, I say, the enlightenment trap and the nihilistic trap. The nihilistic trap is the extreme, and the enlightenment trap is the extreme. The nihilistic trap is that everything is hollow, so there's nothing, pure nothing. And the enlightenment trap is pure everything. And I'm telling you, we are not designed to be an ocean when we have a shape like this human body. That means I totally understand. There's many people perhaps listening to me right now. They're like, Mr. Within, you have no clue how attributelessly I've observed myself. And I'll be like, sure. Yeah, of course. I don't have the eyes of many people, you know. At most, in one of my dreams, I saw my consciousness simultaneously be multi-local. But aside from that, I don't have any person's eyes. What does that mean? That means what happens to you, you're meant to see it. What happens to the world, everyone is meant to see it. What you do in front of your eyes, it echoes to everyone immediately. What you do behind your eyes, it echoes to you. It can give off a field. There's been some people, it's very interesting. Some people are very blessed in this life. And when I say blessed, not blessed per se because they're billionaires or something like that. It's not a financial thing. They're blessed because they see life and they see themselves and they have the tolerance to let life re-administer their self. That means you can't grow if you're holding on to things that you must let go to change. There's some things that they will either kill you or you have to kill it before. And what I mean by that is, for example, I've had this gum stuck on my shoe, which is this kind of smoking habit, for example. And so I know that it's either going to destroy me or I have to destroy it, But that's the nature of life. We're not here to just learn from how things are created or how things are destroyed. I think the ultimate realization of life comes when you see everything is maintained. Everything is just being. For me, this skill of this advanced civilization I see, this skill is not the skill of the body. It is not, I don't want a bunch of Superman civilization where we're all super strong, but we have no vision, no direction, It's like giving someone an incredible technology, but them not using it, and a whole lifetime passing by, and you kind of crying in the space of your oversoul, wondering why. Why was it that a civilization had an ability, but it didn't show it? That's honestly the only thing that is like the wrath of 10,000 suns. There's a lot of intense things. I mean, it's like literally Jordan Peterson was saying that if like, I'll tell you guys this kind of hilarious experience. In 2000, after 2011, I had a series of major experiences. These experiences made me kind of trust my inner realms, and you gotta kind of build that trust. And how that trust builds is literally by you doing something. So, what does that mean? That means the more a person goes to the gym, the more they have a sort of polished concentration when it comes to do the activity. I will tell you guys the story, which was the biggest story, because let me tell you, the human mind, the moment it sees beyond subjectivity, the only thing you can do after subjectivity is be responsible for it. So you can either be an object, or you can consciously be responsible for the object and accept that you're an object and move as a physical object. Okay? Now it's going to be, we're reaching a point where we are having the same sort of experience with the subject. Okay? And we are realizing that there is, in some sense, a sort of, I don't know if I can call it mastery, but I would say advanced familiarity. I think that's what mastery really is. It's that you have seen something so many times that you have seen it in your essence, you know. There's this story for anybody out there listening who has intentions of teaching anything in the world. I'll tell you this story. This story is from the Zen monk who suddenly, this Zen monk had insight, meditated, noticed some things about life and started talking. Okay? And this Zen monk, suddenly the people in the town, this is Zen story I read online, suddenly people from the town come to this Zen monk and they're like, yo man, you're like fat, you're like very wise. And back in the day they had this kind of mentality where people did not have strength of, they couldn't see the truth within themselves, so they would at least see it within others until they could see it within themselves, you know. And so people come up to the Zen monk, and the Zen monk's just being a Zen monk, just some dude chilling on the grass. And people come up to him, everybody in the town comes up to him, and they're like, yo, you gotta be our guru, you gotta be our master, you gotta be this, you gotta be our guru. And this guy's like, yo, this is synchronicity, I probably should be. And what happens is the guy accepts the role. He accepts this role that comes out of nowhere. And the first day appears, everybody's gathered around, and they ask the question. They ask the guy a question. Somebody asks a question that starts with why this? Why? Why is usually, it's kind of like somebody's bringing Thor's hammer when they ask why. It's because it can have, the more dimensions a moment has, the more mysterious a moment can be. There is something proportional to mystery and additional dimensions, you know. So this guy, he's asked this question, why this? And Zen monks were bald, and he has this sweat this cold sweat appear on the back of his head. He's kind of like, he doesn't know, he's nervous. In that moment, he's wise enough, and he says, I am no longer your guru, I'm leaving, you know. And he leaves. And he leaves, and he's not seen for 2 years. After 2 years, he comes back with a different glow in his eyes, and now he understands why the microphone should be in his hand. Now he has, his mind is speaking. There was a time where I just wanted to speak. The archetype wanted to just throw something at the moment. After a point, you will look at every archetype, every identity, every ideology, every sort of alphabet of image you have behind your eyes, and you will bow. You will honor phenomena for just being there. You will honor it. I'm not joking. When you reach that point where you honor the inanimate and the animate simultaneously, you have an honor beyond time. And this life is not about linearized, just oration. This is the technology I have access to. If literally we were a telepathic society, I wouldn't even need to give these talks. But just because information appears to every person in their inner realms with a uniqueness, and this is the cool thing about life, you will only speak to your world when you truly realize you are only in it once. My mortality was the greatest source of my own strength. That was the thing that changed me from relying on this softness of the world to kind of take care of me. And then it was as if, like I am telling you, you might think you're weak, but you might be a lion the future is waiting for. You don't know. There's so many things. If I looked at myself in my youth, I could not fathom I would be a person who would be talking about the mind. The mind? You know, in my youth, I was chasing a soccer ball, and now I'm talking about the mind. I'm chasing this kind of. I'm chasing the cosmic sphere. You know, and that's the thing, that you must not fear your own attempt, and you must not fear that your own authorization to express. Many things, they're not revealed. You can't plant a seed and instantly expect the fruit. And that's the thing I realized. I remember I was, I'm not gonna say who, but a family member, you know, someone in my family, you know, honestly, when you realize nobody has your eyes, you get the freedom to live your life. But this doesn't mean that freedom in all dimensions works. Sometimes I realize it's not about just being this blind robot of freedom in everything. You know, it's not like that. It's like some things, I wouldn't say it's not freedom, I would say it's discipline. It's freedom with a direction, you know? I was raised in an Eastern culture in my youth. And then I came to Western culture. And let me tell you, as a person who kind of experienced two types of conditioning, it's like life was like, I'm not just going to give you Eastern, you know, conditioning from the East. I'm going to give you conditioning from the West, human being. And I was like, yay. But I'm just saying this, it's you're gonna find this moment where you're going to feel the unknown, and when you attempt the unknown, you see the new you. You see the new you. That's why you should attempt. That's all that man can do. We don't have superpowers. We can't levitate things. We can just continue. That means if let's say, I don't know, 4,000 years from now, we are invited towards some sort of galactic organization, imagine. We have become an interstellar civilization, and we've been under the assumption it's empty, and then we suddenly see the universe isn't empty, and there's been ancient galactic institutions around. So at that point, we would be a civilization that will graduate from just identifying with location. We would no longer be Earthlings. We would at that point be probably members of the eyes of the galaxy. You know, I kind of wondered. There was this idea I came across online. It was this concept of, I don't know, somebody called it Galactic Federation, right? And for somebody who likes sci-fi, you look at humanity and you're like, yo, what's going to happen in the future? And you see dimensions of the strange, the unfamiliar enter. So what does that mean? That means when I look at life and I wonder, I'm like, what is this? We want to endlessly continue, but we're fighting over our truths in this present snapshot of history. After some point, you see it's like we're all just drops being raindrops falling into a river, and this river is the civilization's continuing. There's a quote by Dylan Thomas. He's saying this quote to his father on his deathbed, and he says, rage. He says, do not go gentle into that good night. Rage. Rage against the dying of the light. And in that moment, rage against the dying of the light. Don't go gentle into that good night. Dylan Thomas is giving the algorithm. He's giving the algorithm to a sort of ultimate resolution in life. That you see, you are something. Whenever you look at it, at whatever point you look at it, you look at yourself in this life, you will appear to yourself as something. And it is only in your movement, in your noise, in how you're an animate, moving entity where your individual consciousness kind of projects. Not kinda, it's like, here's the thing, if there is no field, where can the soccer players kick the ball? And so similarly, if there's no world, how can there be a self to fathom its continuity or discontinuity? So man has to realize that if we disprove, if we say free will is an illusion, technically free will has access to the world, is perceiving the world, so we're saying the world is an illusion. And I found it very strange because I would look at these atheist and theist debate and I would be like, what are these, it's like, look at Cirque du Soleil's update, And let me tell you why. Because the theist believes in the inconceivable, and the secular-minded, I don't want to say secular society is very vast, but I'm saying like the atheist in some sense, it looks at the concept of God and he's like, yo man, that's man-made what he's saying, and there's a fair point there. But I'm telling you this, the atheist also realizes everything is man-made. Everything. The idea of you is also man-made. It is technically cosmic made, but it is also man-made. So that means when a let's say a neurologist, for example, I heard this from Sam Harris, and I respect Sam Harris. I think he's one of the, we are lucky to hear his voice. But I'm telling you, it's as if he was saying that free will is an illusion, so the self doesn't exist. So in some sense, if the free will is an illusion and your self doesn't exist, how can you believe or disbelieve anything if the free will is an illusion? So I was seeing this situation that both sides between the atheist and theist debate are nullifying themselves out of conception to be left as a moment that your next, how can I say it, your next movement suggests the antenna, what you receive. For me, there is something that surpasses objective and subject identity. Right now, people, of course, everybody's identified with their physicality when they move and when they're animate and when they're individual. But people are also identified with their subjectivity. For example, a mystic would be a person who isn't identified with their subjectivity. So they are silently roaming the earth as a sort of just sight before time is projected, I think what it is here's the evolution. Unconscious world, and then unconscious self, and then conscious self, and then conscious world. And right now, these are the 4 stages. And right now, we are at the conscious self. And we're moving to the conscious world. What does that mean? That means the unconscious world was before evolution, before there were the design of legs or a creature. Then there was the unconscious self. That's what Mr. Within is considering the objective evolution. That's when the design of legs, the design of limbs came on the earth. That means the creature was no longer a part of the earth. It began walking over the earth. Whoa! You know, we were no longer the earth. We were on the earth. We were in the earth. We had found a sort of physical world. That's the objective evolution. Now, something they don't talk about, and I'm like, why did they never teach this in schools? And it's because nobody, I think, positioned it in the way I am. Kind of. I mean, people have, but just nobody talked about the subjective evolution. I hadn't heard of the word until I felt in my own universe, came up with it. So the subjective evolution was, of course, there has been philosophers who've spoken about subjectivity. But when I say the subjective evolution, you see, the way I'm defining the objective evolution is different. Evolution is seen as this sort of gradual adaptation to the conditions that the creature moves towards surviving in, right? So I am not seeing the objective evolution, the significance of the objective evolution and per se in the gradual change. I'm seeing the significance of the objective evolution again in how there was just the design of hands and legs and limbs. Now, so check this out. Unconscious world, no creature at that point. Unconscious self, only the body of a creature. Conscious self, there came a conscious self after the unconscious. Oh, sorry, there came a conscious world. I miswrote this guy. Sorry. So here I'll tell people, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, write this on a piece of paper. Write the letter UW, and then let there be a space to the right of U, the letters U and W, and then come to the side and write US, and then come to the side of that, write CW, and then write CS. Okay, so I want you to write these four acronyms: UW, US, CW, CS, and write them each to the right of the next one consecutively. So the UW is the unconscious world. This is the pure unknown. We were not a creature. We were not a knower at this point, or even if we were, we weren't aware. You know, there was no consciousness of it. So the unconscious world literally is a mystery. It's how, like, the origin of history is like a dream. We can't see that far. Then we have the unconscious self. The unconscious self is how we are getting to know the physical. So I would say the unconscious self, that was unknown. The unconscious self was physically known. You can write the word physically known and draw an arrow from US to physically known. Okay? Or sorry, physically unknown. Physically unknown. And then the CW is the conscious world. And this is how the child, in some sense, appears without a psychology, without an identity. Literally, newborn babies are literally, their minds are being worlds. Okay? Like, literally, the child, like, you can't, like, imagine, like, Hitler trying to, like, with his propaganda, recruit an infant baby. The infant baby's gonna look at Hitler and be like, I'm not even a person yet, get away from me, you know? So it would be a situation, I mean, that was an extreme example, but I'm saying literally the infant doesn't even know it's an infant. That phase is when the child's mind is being conscious as the world first before the self. Okay? And that's the subjective evolution. We noticed ourselves in a bigger picture. And that's when the picture began moving. It wasn't just a static, we weren't just a static frame. There was maybe a nanosecond before the subjective evolution where it was a micro snapshot objective evolution. So I can say between the objective evolution and the subjective evolution, there was one moment, I'm certain of this, there is one moment where literally we experienced an unmoving thought. And that is where nostalgia comes from. Nostalgia and the mystical nostalgia, I try to pinpoint it. If you want to give it a sense, it would literally be the first time an object became a subject to itself. That is divinity. That is the mystery. That is what we're looking at. So check this out. There's another acronym left, CS. And CS doesn't stand for the game Counter-Strike, which was a big part of my youth. Guys, I'll tell you this. In Iran, they didn't have good internet connections. So there would be these kind of, when I was young, there would be these gaming booths. There would be these kind of wireless LAN, sorry, not wireless LAN, wired LAN kind of servers. You know, you would go into this, you would pay this place like some money, and you'd go there and you'd sit on a computer and you'd be on the same map as other people. Now games have reached a sort of evolutionary point where they're just online. They're just like multiplayer. Like some games, I was like reading the statistics, and I'm like, what? You know, 85 million people are invested. So many millions of people. So it's as if like somebody in the future can come and say, I know we're fighting about religion and like, you know, religious fundamentalism and, let's say, for example, secular technological dangers. Like we're fighting these, but among these, there is some sort of occupation of the human attention from a natural world to a cyber simulation. So the more life appears like a game, the less you want it to be real. The more it just for a microsecond doesn't feel like a game, you suddenly realize the unknown, you come back to your senses. I can tell you, there's no easier way to get your life back into order, or it's find that rhythm of your life by just visiting the unknown. There's moments where I see when I don't know anything, I'm like, all right, I need to consult the unknown. And literally I just go stand in an unknown way. And you don't know. Sometimes when you create the space to have something, it comes to you. I think we're not actually meant to go towards stuff. I think our minds are so advanced that we can totally build, not even build, but nature kind of works like this, where you get to experience what you have allowed yourself the space for to experience. And that space is the inner story that is formulating, or in the talk before this, I was saying your internal cinematic language. How you, in some sense, exist as a film if somebody asks you who you are. Like you're fast forwarding through your childhood to now, like a film. Like, what is that? That's our inner realms. And so I'm saying it was like unknown, then we became physically known, then we became objectively, we were first completely unknown, then we were physically unknown, then we became, in some sense, aware of our physicality, so we became then physically known, but subjectively unknown. And now we're reaching a point where everybody's like the true self, the real self. We're reaching to that point. So technically, that's what I meant. How would I say it? Right now, I'm telling you, we completed our objective evolution. We entered a subjective phase of evolution, and we are reaching the completion of that subjective phase of evolution. And the completion of that subjective phase of evolution will be the birth of a new, I don't want to say archetype or experience. It's going to just be how some things are new when they're added to your moment. This is going to be a self-realization. You're going to realize something was there before you were born, and now you're noticing it, and its spirit becomes alive, and as you're present and you acknowledge it, it animates. So I'm telling you, your relationship with life is actually the relationship you have with how you have accepted life. And when you find the unknown, that unknown moment, and wonder about what you have accepted, you come to the platform of an attempt of the free will towards its own omniscience. That means, what does the ego seek? If the ego was a hungry animal, what is it seeking? It is seeking power. Why is it seeking power? Because it thinks power is going to stop it from vanishing. But I am telling you, you will no longer have an ego when you realize language was just an Iron Man suit. When you realize the subjective realm is an additional It's literally physicality's invisible Iron Man suit, which is a hilarious statement to say. An invisible Iron Man suit. You know, it's like, what's the point? I mean, you have your defenses, but I'm saying, like, people feel that they need to attempt energetic expression only when they want something. I think the biggest secret of life, and I think this is at the core of Tai Chi, Qigong, and all these um, uh, sort of Eastern practices of how to have a relationship with energy. Uh, I think the relationship with energy eventually becomes again this concept of balance between earth and heaven. And what that means is that after some point of view, managing and conducting your individual life, you will notice the drop is an ocean. Your inner realms are an ocean of their own. Your outer realms is a sort of collective ocean. Right now, we are all being drops of matter in a material existential plane. We are manifest creatures. We are dancers in the void, and we're 8 billion creatures on a rock wondering where can this go? Where can it go? And I am getting the clues from nature. After some point, you're like human beings, they're too crazy for their own good. They're too intense to recognize their own gentleness. And so I remember when I was in nature, there was many times, I can tell you honestly, guys, I've been in nature and I've broken down. Literally, it's like with my mind seeing the rise and fall of civilizations, trying to fathom histories being fast forwarded, or you know, you see there's an end to everything that has begun. So I was like, what is the strategy to an existential situation where everything ends? And I realized it's to begin. It's to continuously begin. That means death is not something to fear. It is a clue. It is a clue that there is something that should be done while you're existing. Excuse me, I got interrupted there. What can I say, guys? I mean, we are eyes that have opened somewhere, and we think we're something, you know? Guys, let me tell you, I got something, I was washing my face, you know? Hopefully people can hear me now. I don't know, guys. I think we are not linear beings. I think non-linearity is a rhythm. I think life is happening incredibly meaninglessly, and it's that we fall into certain conditions of meaning. There's a story of this imperial swordsman. He comes home, he sees his servant is sleeping with his wife. And the servant was this humble servant, actually a practitioner of Zen, but he was a servant of the household of this imperial warrior, and the wife was alone, and the servant was could see the wife, could see her being, you know, and so they got down to it. And so this imperial swordsman, this swordsman who teaches, this teacher of swordsmen for the army of the king, the emperor, he comes and sees this servant as kind of like is laying with his wife, and he just, instead of getting angry and killing the guy on the spot, he just first thing he does is he still respects his wife. So what he does is he tells the guy to step out of the house. He takes the problem out of his house first. He tells the servant to step out of the house, get out of the house, you know. The servant is terrified. He knows who the guy is. The wife is scared because he knows it wasn't the servant's fault, but the wife can't say anything in that culture. And so what happens is that the servant is called forth in the outside in town and in front of like the yard or whatever, where people are there and everybody's watching, and the imperial swordsman throws one of his katanas or something at the, what do you call it, at the servant, and just says one word, says fight. That means you've come into my territory and you have in some sense attacked me first. So he's saying fight. That means you've started a war. Now you're gonna see it to the end, you know. And so the servant is kind of like in this situation where he's kind of like, he doesn't know what to do, he's trembled, and then he suddenly remembers his guru. So he had like, sorry, not guru, like his, I don't know, Zen advisor. Zen advisor. That's what businesses need. They need somebody who's like zenfully gives them advice, you know. Plaza, yeah, there we go. Thanks, Ivan. Yeah, they gather in some plaza somewhere, and what happens is that the guy says the name of his guru, and the guru is some notable, important person, and he says, I have to go speak to this, what's his name, to this sage who I'm a disciple of before I kind of like can fight you. And then back in the day, there was this sense of, it's a Zen story, so there was the sense of honor. There was this sense of like, it was your honor died in society was worse than, for example, like, you know, you dying, you know. So honor was very crucial. So honor kept justice around, you know. So the more honorable a civilization was, the quicker it would advance, I feel. The more it would stay true to itself. But anyways, what happens is this guy says, I gotta see my disciple, and the guy suddenly says, I'll see you tomorrow or something. Like he knows. Like it's like the guy in the story doesn't run away, guys. Anyways, the guy goes to his guru, and the guru's meditating, let's say, by a tree or something, to the Zen monk or whatever. to the Zen sage. And the sage opens his eyes and he's like, what is it? You know? And the guy's like, yo, I got into this mess, and the swordsman who teaches the armies of the king how to fight with a sword wants to fight me and kill me. So what should I do, Guru? What should I do to survive, sage, you know? And the sage kind of goes into this, closes his eyes, just lets the moment kind of speak. And the moment tells him something, and he says it to the kid. And he says that this is your destiny, and you have to confront this moment. And this is the only advice I can give you. And the guy was hoping, like the guru was like, yeah, just meditate by a tree till the end of time. You know? But the guru says, no, this is your destiny. You must go forth, and says, I'll give you one advice. Fight as if it's your last moment in existence. Literally fight as if you will not exist. It's your last moment in existence. And there comes this intensity where it was as if the softness, the humor, the romance of the world suddenly turned into this intensity where it's as if the person has to confront the chaos. You have to walk through the fire that you have kind of, matched. Pun intended. The next day arrives. The swordsman awaits in the plaza. He's already thrown his throne on the ground, and so the servant shows his face. The servant shows his face, and the moment he appears, and the moment the eyes of the servant see the sword on the ground, he remembers the advice of the guru, the sage, where the sage said, live as if it's your last moment in this existence. And this savage wilderness takes over him. And he in some sense takes, he grabs the sword, and with this intensity, as if it's his last moment, literally as if he could literally not exist, he starts fighting, hitting like a savage. He doesn't even know skill, anything. It's the importance of the moment that's evoking the intensity. And the swordsman is fighting. He's like, holy shit, was a warrior this strong my servant this whole time? You know? And what happens is that the imperial swordsman looks in the eyes of this servant and sees the servant will not die. The servant is not going to stop. Endless endurance, as I say sometimes. And for a second, his grip becomes weak, and the sword is hit out of his hand. And this savageness, this savage storm of the mind of the servant suddenly settles. There's this silence. And just the imperial swordsman just nods as if you've won your honor. All right? You know, they're not going to be friends after that, definitely. But I'm saying, like, they had no more problem. They had settled the issue. And the story says, I remember it was like 3 days later, the guy attains nirvana. He sees the true nature of reality. And it has a Zen ending. So that's the thing, guys. Guys, I gotta make this part 2, and I'll be back. So thanks for tuning in. Part 2 coming soon. Much blessings and namaste.